For more on this, I'd like to welcome in Julia Manchester with our partners at The Hill. Julia, great to see you. President Biden right now is speaking. I'd like to talk about the White House response or lack thereof. Based on everything you have seen from the White House, when do you think, or will we even actually hear from the president when it comes to this breaking news?
Yeah, Nicole, look, I think the president or the White House has to address this at some point because they're going to be asked about it. Every time you see President Biden walk across the White House lawn when he's departing the White House or doing a press gaggle inside or outside of the White House, this is going to be a top question. And for a while, the White House and President Biden were trying to run away from this and trying to distance themselves from it, essentially not answering these questions. However, we've seen that answer has changed. We've seen President Biden say and the White House say that the president and first lady care about their son and they ask everyone to respect their privacy at this time. But look, President Biden is running for re-election, and we are seeing for the first time in American history a sitting president's son or child being indicted with a crime. And it's going to be something that he's going to be asked about in addition to the impeachment inquiry. The timing of this is, very interesting to see that there's been this impeachment inquiry into connection with Hunter Biden and this indictment happening. So it's something that I don't think the White House can run away from.
Absolutely not. Julie, I want to talk to you about the timing of it. But first, you mentioned the fact that, of course, as of right now, President Biden is running for re-election. He's going to be asked about this. Another thing I would imagine he will be asked about is the potential for a presidential pardon if his son Hunter is in fact convicted, because that is potentially a possibility.
It's a possibility, and I think the White House will be very careful in crafting their answer if they decide to answer that question. But, Nicole, there is a flip side to this argument. Of course, the White House, is going to be asked about this. I think reporters have a right to ask questions about this. But at the same time, the White House wants to be focused because they want to be focused on, kitchen table issues like healthcare, the economy, that kind of a thing. And at the same time as that, you have voters who probably care more about the state of the economy and healthcare. And that's probably going to play a bigger role, likely, in their decision at the ballot box in November of 2024. So, I think there's a few ways you can look at this, but in terms of how it impacts voters, I think a lot of them view this as very inside Washington baseball.
And Julia, before we let you go here, a lot of critics have complained or mentioned what they're calling, a two-tiered system of justice, particularly after we saw the former president indicted 4 times. But now, talk about the historic nature of this. We are seeing, a current sitting president's son indicted, current sitting president who happens to be a Democrat. I mean, we continue to see these historic events happening in real time.
We continue to see them happening in real time, and we continue to see both of these frontrunners, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and the prospect of them running against each other. A lot of Americans are unhappy with that prospect. They'd like someone new in each party. However, Democratic and Republican primary voters seem to be set on Joe Biden and Donald Trump for the most part at this moment in time. So, it'll be interesting to see what their messaging is during the general election, what Trump's trials and his schedules looks like, what it's going to look like, for Hunter Biden when he's dealing with his own separate legal issues and how that impacts his father's presidential campaign. But I would imagine that the Biden White House and the Biden campaign right now might want to distance themselves from Hunter Biden, so they don't have to necessarily talk about it. But at the same time, at the end of the day, this is a father and his son, so it's a very difficult situation.
Right. It's certainly difficult to distance himself from his son. All right, Julia Manchester from our partners at The Hill, thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.